reading a lot and thinking, taking time to think, it's very important. And that requires building your reading muscle. It's not something that you do just in a day or in a small moment. It's something you need to be constant about it. And that's why reading every day, every week, writing and learning how to write well is extremely important. And even though we are at the time of AI and ChatGPT, unless you know exactly and you have your own creativity and own ideas, ChatGPT is not going to solve your basic needs.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Scholars Table. On this podcast, we sit with scholars, leaders, and practitioners to have honest conversations about academia, leadership, and the work behind meaningful careers. I am Dr. Banda Khalifa. Each episode brings a thoughtful voice to the table to reflect on experience, decision-making, and the path that shape long-term impact. Today, I'm joined by Professor Ana, a leading environmental health scientist and an academic leader whose work has shaped research, training, and public health practice globally. Professor Ana is a Leon Hurst Professor and the Chair of the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at Columbia University and previously held senior academic roles at Johns Hopkins University, where she trained and mentored generations of public health researchers. Her work sits at the intersection of rigorous science, doctoral training, and building research careers with real-world evidence. Fun to say that with her joining us today, the Scholars Table continues to bring together voices from across the Ivy League and leading institutions, including Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Brown University, and now Columbia University, for thoughtful conversations about academia, leadership, and the work behind meaningful scholarly careers. Professor Ana, thank you so much for joining us on the Scholars Table.
Thank you so much, Banda, for having me with you today.
Awesome. I know behind the screen we were chatting about your experiences back at Hopkins when you were first a PhD student and then a faculty for over 15 years. So, to start off, I want us to maybe you walk us through a little bit about your academic journey, what first drew you to environmental health as a physician, and how that interest has evolved into a career and leadership roles that you're holding today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this question. So I trained as a physician early on. And as I was finishing my medical studies, I became really interested in public health. I had a class called Preventive Medicine and Public Health. And that was very influential to me. Suddenly, the world of medicine became so much bigger. The focus became so much more impactful. And I started to realize that population angle, bigger scale, was really attractive to me. And so that's when I decided to first do a residency training in preventive medicine and public health. And then I really wanted to focus on a training as a PhD and do a PhD, which I did in epidemiology at the Johns Hopkins University. And following that, during my PhD, I really started to work on environmental exposures. And that's how my focus on environmental health became. And the reason is that I was so interested in looking for those aspects that made it easy for people to be healthy without individual level action. So that big scale, bringing health through healthy environments, that's what became really very powerful and interesting concept to me. And this is how I pursued my career in environmental health sciences.
Okay, so you were at Hopkins for quite a long time. How was your experience like being a student at Hopkins and faculty, and also like your experience in Baltimore in general?
I love it. I had a wonderful time in Baltimore as a PhD student. I was in the Department of Epidemiology, also at the Welch Center for Prevention and Clinical Medicine, Preventive Medicine, Epidemiology, and Clinical Research. That was the name of the center, sorry. Mm-hmm. And then I joined the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at the time. That was the name of the department at Hopkins as a faculty. And I had a great time. I love Baltimore City, all the neighborhoods. It's a wonderful place. And then I came to New York in 2016. So I went to Hopkins in 2001 as a student and then moved to New York as a full professor now in 2016.
Awesome. So now you are leading the environmental environmental health sciences at Columbia University. How has your understanding of what it means to maybe have a successful academic career changed since your early years?
This is a great question. And I would say, to me, the key for what I see my personal academic success is that I've always prioritized my passion for science and advancing knowledge. That's the reason why I came to do my PhD in epidemiology and why I wanted to focus on public health and public health research is because I thought it was a very powerful discipline and field to have a real impact in society and in people's health. And that focus has really continued. I remain really interested in that aspect. It's not the personal academic success that really matters, but it's more the work that we do and the impact of the work that we do. What has changed for me now is that while before that was very based on my own research, my own work, now I see it bigger. I see the impact of the faculty in my department, our collective success. That has changed, but really the focus on the advancing knowledge, that remains a pillar, a very strong pillar in who I am and what I really want to do.
Okay. And as you've said, you moved from building your own research program to leading a whole department in an Ivy League institution. How did that shift change the way you think about what it means to build an academic career? For instance, what aspect of maybe leadership were most challenging when you first stepped into the departmental or institutional role?
Yes, I think one of the key things for me, and I've been chair now for a year and a half, and of course it's been a very special year and a half with many things I didn't anticipate.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But what has been really important for me to learn, and I am not sure I managed yet, is to understand that I need to not be so fast. I am a very action-oriented person. I am very quick. And for things that I control myself, it's okay. It's okay to be fast and make my own decisions. But as a leader in a department, there are many different people. There are many different opinions. And it's very, very important to listen and to make sure that everybody's ideas are represented when we make decisions. And that I've had to learn that a little bit and be slower, be more patient, and be a better listener. Because again, yes, I can be myself very fast. And I think, I already know what we should be doing and I want to do it quickly. But no, I think it's very, very important as a leader to be patient and to listen.
Yeah, I think this is such an important point, especially in a leadership position. You have to think about the collective goal. I mean, if you're working individually, it's easy to kind of sail through your own decisions. But if you're representing an institution or people in such a big scale, I totally agree that this may be one of the aspects you may have to slow down. But is there something you wish maybe early career researchers understood sooner about building a long academic career?
I think to me, the most important thing to learn early on is to understand that setbacks are part of the normal process in science and in academia. To get rejections, to get criticism, to get your papers being rejected or your grants not being funded. It's just part of the normal process. It's part of the way that we have in science to provide really harsh criticism to make the work better at the end of the day. And so at the beginning, you take these things very personally. We are very sensitive. We work so hard. We think we've done such a great, amazing job putting together that paper, that document, that presentation. And then people come with lots of questions, with lots of criticism. And early on, it's normal to take them personally. It's normal to be upset. It's normal to think about it. But quickly you need to say, okay, let me see how do I get that and look for the positive side. What can I learn and how can I improve? How can we do a better job based on those comments, those criticisms? That I think is something really important. And I have to say that I was not particularly good early on. It would make me feel very, very sad when people would criticize my work, especially when I had put a lot of time and effort in putting something together. And then I've learned over the years, I appreciate actually. And even now, I get some grants that are not discussed. And I am just so thankful to be there at the table with others and being able to be reviewed or not reviewed. But, we are in the game, and sometimes it works in one way and sometimes it doesn't. But that was an important lesson for me. And I think the faster you go through that transition, the best long term, the better long term.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point. And especially even for those who haven't started their academic career yet, you are starting a PhD, there's oftentimes a bitter lesson of learning how to deal with rejections, because you get a lot even before you start your own academic.
Yeah, and actually, you might not be accepted in the place you want. I was lucky with Hopkins being accepted for my PhD, but for instance, when I did my residency training, I was not accepted in the place that was my top choice. And options B, C, D might be fantastic. So don't get discouraged if it doesn't work the way you want.
Yeah, that's an important point and a good reminder. So I want us to pivot a bit to PhD training and mentorship. And I know like building a strong research career often begins during doctoral training. And drawing from your own experience as a PhD student yourself, a mentor, and now a departmental chair, what does strong PhD training actually look like in practice?
Yes, I think a strong PhD training requires giving the tools and the opportunities for the PhD students to think, to read, and to develop their own research questions, with often some opportunity to be interdisciplinary a little bit, even though you need to have a strong discipline at the same time. But this is why often thesis committees require representation from different departments. So the idea that you can really think of science in a strong, large, broad way, in at the same time to focus and go in depth in a question that you are able to pursue. Those different skills of breadth and depth together are really important. So I would say that that's what departments are kind of responsible for, making sure that students have those opportunities to achieve both depth and breadth in the work they do.
Okay. So in terms of being a successful PhD student, let's say beyond the research methods and the coursework, what qualities or habits do you think matter most for PhD students over a long term?
I think the most important is that ability to think independently and to think of what's needed, what's being creative, bringing new angles to the work, and not just being repetitive. Of course, you need to take advantage of the resources you have around in your departments. Your mentors might have a lot of resources, cohort studies that are already ongoing, projects that are already ongoing, and you should definitively use those. Don't start from zero. But at the same time, you need to be able to bring in something new, something unique. And for that, I think reading a lot and thinking, taking time to think, it's very important. And that requires building your reading muscle. It's not something that you do just in a day or in a small moment. It's something you need to be constant about it. And that's why reading every day, every week, writing and learning how to write well is extremely important. And even though we are at the time of, AI and ChatGPT, but unless you know exactly and you have your own creativity and own ideas, ChatGPT is not going to solve your basic needs. So that I think is really critical. Having time to think, read, and being creative, leveraging the resources you have available for you.
And from your vantage point now, is there something about the PhD training you would redesign if you could? You've been a student, you've also been a faculty at two top institutions, Johns Hopkins and now at Columbia. If there's something about the training you would like to redesign, what would that be?
Yeah. So I am going to tell you a little bit about the things I like the most about our current program here at Columbia, and maybe the ones that were surprising for me when I came from Hopkins, but maybe some of the things I still miss from the Hopkins training. Something amazing about Columbia in our Department of Environmental Health Sciences is that the students' qualifying exam is based on writing 2 research proposals. When I came, I was just like, writing 2 proposals, not just one, but 2. And I thought it was like impossible because, for me, it took so long already to write one when I was a PhD student. So I was thinking, how can the students write 2? But actually, that's been really fantastic because one of them, you write it in very strong support, with very strong support of your mentor. And the other one, you have to write it on your own completely, with just very, very high level supervision only. So that was surprising to me. But I see how unique and powerful it is for our students. It really allows them to develop incredible creativity and to have to face on their own what it is to become an independent scientist. So I really, really love this model now. I've embraced it so strongly, and we continue to keep it. Something that I missed from Hopkins' PhD training program is actually, there was, before going into the research proposal writing, so we had more like a pre-qualifying exam that was more based on taking time to be in a single room, writing your own exam, making sure that you have acquire the basic foundational elements of the training, either in epidemiology, when I was myself an epidemiology student, or in environmental health sciences, when I then became a faculty. And that time to also face yourself, being able to write and think in a room without computer, without anything, and maybe reading a paper and being able to now write down what you think of a paper. That was a skill and a time that was very powerful, I felt, and we are missing that in our current program. But again, if I wanted to change that, I cannot do it myself as the chair. It would be a collective effort. So I understood I cannot do things quickly. So let's see what happens with our program.
Okay. I think our next segment will be on the PhD interview and the selection process. Okay, so I want us to move to maybe the PhD interview process and how the selection is typically done. Many members of our audience preparing for PhD interviews. So when you're sitting on a selection committee, what are you really paying attention to beyond, for example, the grade, the GPA, the CV, and maybe publication? What are you really paying attention to from a student across you?
Yeah, I think especially for the PhD program is the readiness for the PhD, is the maturity, the commitment. The PhD is not an easy program. I think everybody needs to be aware of that. In a master program, you are able to acquire a lot of breadth, you get a lot of support. But in a PhD program, well, obviously support is going to be important, but this idea of independence and being able to do independent level work and to focus for a number of years on advancing knowledge are critical. And for that reason, the students need to show in their application that they are ready for that commitment, that they've achieved a level of maturity in their previous experiences that make them ready for the PhD program. And I think that's what we are trying to understand when we review these materials, when we review the letters of reference, when we review what they've done in the past. And I was talking earlier about setbacks. When students have had a setback in their previous undergraduates or masters or work experience, and they've shown that they were able to overcome those challenges in a way that also shows that you are ready for that commitment of the PhD. So people should not be afraid of having had, bad grades in a particular class, or having had a bad negative experience in some sort, because that could actually make you look more ready for the commitment of the PhD program. So that's what we are looking for. Are you ready for that commitment?
Okay. I think that makes a lot of sense there. So for students who are preparing for interview, they know definitely they would have to demonstrate some level of fit with the program or department. How do you think students can effectively demonstrate that element of fit during the interview?
Yeah, something key during the interviews is to make sure that you know the people in the department that you are going to be interviewing with. So doing a little bit of research on what types of projects are they working on, what are their websites, their careers, a little bit. I think showing that level of knowledge of the department, at least, if not of all the people you are interviewing with, it can be challenging because I know that those interview days are intense. The candidates are going to be meeting with lots of different faculty and lots of students. And then it might be overwhelming to prepare for each person you are going to be meeting with, but at least to show that you know the department, what is the department working on, what are the key things they are doing, and how your previous experience and work or what you want to achieve in the future, it's a good fit with that, with those activities. I think that's the best way to show it.
Okay. I know you've sat across multiple PhD interviews. What are some of the common mistakes or misunderstandings you see candidates make during a PhD interview?
I think one of the most common is, I would not say if it's a mistake, but it's when people feel it's hard for them to look you into the eye, or they feel intimidated, they are too rigid. I would recommend everybody to be yourselves. Come relax, come, with your genuine yourself of who you are. And just share the interest, what motivates you, why do you want to do this, why do you think you are ready for that commitment. Again, in the interview, that's going to be very, very important. Even as I mentioned, when we review applications, we are looking for that. But when we see you face to face, that's even more important. And just be yourself. Don't be afraid. Think that the person, the faculty member that you are interviewing with, it's a real person who genuinely wants to get to know you a little bit better. And so don't be afraid. Just be yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so if you were to maybe give an advice to someone who is getting ready for a PhD interview, what would you say a good preparation look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think a good preparation comes to have a good short statement about what their goals are and why they want to pursue a PhD program. I think that's very important. I always ask that question. Why do you want to do a PhD? And why do you want to do a PhD here in our institution? Why Columbia University? Why the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at Columbia University? So the student has to have a quick answer to that question, because that's the first thing I am going to ask them myself. Why a PhD? Why Columbia? And why environmental health sciences? And why environmental health sciences at Columbia University? Those are my first three questions. So they should be ready to answer that. And then, to know a little bit about the department and have some questions to ask, because we often ask them, do you have any questions for me? So if they have no questions, then that's a little bit...
Okay. Yeah. I think the last time when I spoke with the dean from Hopkins, and I also spoke with the chair of EPI from Harvard. I mean, he also mentioned that this year is going to be a little bit tough. The number of applicants they used to have is slightly down because of course, the policies and funding restraints and all that. So people haven't applied as much as they used to. How is the situation like in Colombia? Is it the
No,
same?
actually, we haven't seen that. I don't know why. Maybe that's more like in epidemiology. I wonder, because not in environmental health sciences at Columbia, we have the same number of applicants, even a little bit higher. But what makes it challenging, because the number of slots, we are hoping for it to be higher than last year. Last year was a very difficult time for us. And unfortunately, we were only able to accept 2 students last year. However, this year we hope to be able to be up from that number. I am pretty confident that we will be, so that's fantastic. But still, it might be competitive, highly competitive. So, yeah. But I am excited. Yeah, we have a great number of applicants. I can't wait. We are reading the materials right now. We have not made our invitations yet for interviews, but we'll be making it very soon. So I am very excited about it.
Awesome. And how is the funding structure like at Columbia? Is it like guaranteed funding once you get in?
Yes. Our department is 5 years of guaranteed funding. Yes. That's a very, very important commitment. We want to make sure that all the students have the exact same conditions to succeed. And also we want to recognize that New York, it's a difficult city in terms of, housing and other challenges. And so for us, being able to adequately support our PhD students is extremely important. So yes, this is critical for us to provide full funding for our students. Yeah.
Awesome. I think we are getting to the end of our conversation. I mean, as you think about the next generation of scholars listening to this conversation, what advice would you offer to those who are perhaps just beginning, PhD students or master students, or those in the early stages of their academic career?
I think my best advice is to really have that passion for advancing knowledge and learning, to advance your own knowledge as students and to bring that to advance knowledge for society. And if you keep that as your primary interest, there is so much to do, and that's always going to give you a lot of pleasure, no matter what your position or your job is. So that would be my best advice.
Awesome. And before we wrap up, we close each episode with short segments we
Okay.
call the Scholars Table Quick Takes or Rapid Fire. So this is where like we step back from the CV and the title and focus more on perspective and experience. So I'll ask you a few rapid questions. There are no right answers, just honest ones. Short responses, first
Okay.
instincts. Okay. The first question is one book you think every emerging public health or academic leader should read?
I think for us in environmental health, I am going to recommend Environmental Health from Global to Local by Howard Fromkin. And I have it here. I can show
Okay.
you. This is the book. It's a very
I see.
important. It's an amazing book. If you read it well, I always recommend it to my students. It's amazing.
I can see it's heavy, right?
Yeah. It's heavy, but you can use the electronic version.
Okay. All right. Okay. One thing you believed early in your career that you no longer believe today.
At the beginning, I thought that translational research or community based was really hard to achieve. I was trained in a very classic epidemiological framework in a way. I believe translation, impact, and community based are incredible, needed, and strong pillars for the work that we do. So don't be afraid of translational work, and especially participatory research.
Okay. What's a buzzword in academia you would gladly retire?
You know, I am going to say this is the opposite. I think we need to fight in academia for words that it has taken us such a long time to adopt. For instance, environmental justice. It took us a long time in academia. Environmental justice is a grassroots term. And it took us a long time in academia to take it. And now we are in a very challenging time where we are supposed to not use those types of terms. No, I completely want to fight for our important terms, such as environmental justice, inequalities, disparities, climate change. Those are very important words. We need to use the science to advance the knowledge, and that terminology is critical to advance knowledge and impact.
Okay. One lesson you often teach your trainees, but occasionally forget to follow yourself.
I think for me, it's take time to rest. I always say take time to spend, take a break, rest. And often I try to squeeze in too many things in my day and agenda. So, not so good about that.
Yeah, it's quite common because at times we all know exactly what to do. We know what is right, but because of circumstances, we are not able to adhere to, some of the things that we already know works. So if you could instantly master a skill outside of public health, what would it be?
I think for me it would be art, painting, being artistic. That's something I enjoyed when I was younger. And I think it's also something that if you can bring art to public health, it's also powerful. I would love to do that, have time for that.
Okay. Coffee, tea, or something stronger?
So no caffeine for me. I stopped it. Yeah, I stopped it in 2010. I used to have headaches that would only solve with more caffeine. And then I stopped caffeine and my headaches went away. Yeah, so I only drink decaf coffee and decaf tea. Sometimes I drink regular tea in the morning, but that's all. So I am very happy with that. Yeah.
Okay. One habit that has quietly served you well throughout your career?
I think for me it was walking to work. I would always love to walk as my regular commute. It would give me a lot of time to think. And then during the pandemic years, during the COVID pandemic, I started running, something that I have never done. And I realized I also love running a lot. I am a very slow runner. I am very, very slow runner so that I can think. So either walking or running slowly, I love to have that time for myself for relaxing and thinking. So that's my best rest time that I was telling earlier. I don't have a rest. I am not so good with resting, but walking and running slowly are my best way to rest.
Awesome. Professor Anna, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us and for such a thoughtful conversation. We truly appreciate your openness and generosity throughout this discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Banda. Khalifa, thank you for this amazing opportunity to reach out to potential students.
Okay, thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for being part of the Scholars Table, where we create space for honest conversations. If this episode was useful to you, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn. We are also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This episode will be shared on all our platforms. Until next time, I'm Banda Khalifa. Thank you for listening.